I went to the Cowichan Bay estuary with a backpack full of art supplies and a lot of hopes and dreams, which would then quickly be dashed. It kind of felt like a lot of things went wrong, but I pivoted and I recovered. We will go over how I created some loose sketches in the studio. I've come home from the estuary and I had to face realities about what didn't work when I was there at the estuary. For example, my microphone malfunctioned. So I took a lot of video footage that has zero sound. There is no song of the red-winged blackbird. There is no explanation of what I was thinking and feeling in the moment. My regular camera, the one that has my SD card in it, the footage was so shaky that I really can't use it for anything. But when I pause the footage, I get not too bad of a picture of the birds there. So I'm thinking I'm going to pause that footage and I'm going to sketch some ducks and birds in my studio based on pausing the footage. My name is Heather Nelson. I'm a soft pastel artist living on Vancouver Island in Canada. When I was out there, I really didn't get any sketching done. There was a lot of talking to other people who were interested in birds, so that's not exactly a loss. It was very social, but it wasn't exactly what I was planning to do. Birds don't exactly stay still for sketching anyway. Check out these little fighter pilots of swallows. They're crazy maneuvering through the sky. There was a brief time early on at the estuary where I did have a working microphone. This was before it kind of like fell out of my phone or I stepped on it or something. And so let's start there. I've come out looking for blue herons that I can sketch and paint. So far, I have mostly just seen mallard ducks, so I might play around with sketching them. And I met a lovely lady who is also a soft pastel artist. Amazing to meet her out here. Now we've split ways so we can just focus on finding some birds. I definitely did see a lot of birds, but they were quite far away and it was kind of hard to distinguish their body shapes, so I think I'm going to have to bring binoculars on one of my next trips. Also, I think I may have chit-chatted a little bit too much to the bird lovers out at the estuary and not focused enough on my sketching. A couple of times, I sat down and I took all of my supplies out of my bag and then the birds left. I did get to see that blue heron I was looking for. I was hoping to see him hunting on the mudflats as a reference for my mail club, but he was on his way out. But again, if I pause that footage, I can clearly see a lovely shape, so I can work on basic shapes when I'm back in the studio. Please like and subscribe if you find this helpful or entertaining, because I don't know how helpful it was. I had an experience out there and it didn't go as planned. So we had a lot of different birds there at the estuary and I've paused my video and then we're just going to kind of just sketch out some of the basic shapes of some of the different species. As I'm freehand sketching these birds, I'm trying not to get too uptight about it. I kind of want to pretend that I am out there at the estuary looking at these particular species and just trying to get down like a loose sketch of what they would look like. For that, I'm primarily focusing on basic head shape and body shape. So I'm thinking about like what kind of circles are we dealing with, what kind of ovals, where are my curves, and and also proportions, like rough proportions. How big is the body in relation to the head on a particular species? I'm trying not to get like overly concerned and get out an exact portrait down on my paper. And let's just do a different view of that same bird because I've got another one that's just like that species there. So and again, it's a little hard for me to guess. I guess if I had like a bird species book, since it's kind of far away here, and I'm just kind of looking at just the basic shapes right now. I don't have to it doesn't have to be like a perfect duck drawing. As it turns out, my mom had a bird species book. She has a bird identification book, but I didn't know about that, and so I was kind of going off the cuff here. But in the future, I'm going to use the book. Instead, I was using my Photos app to identify the birds just so I could get the names out. I've looked it up and I'm just going to kind of keep the idea of a bufflehead in mind when I'm thinking about markings. But still, we're going to be thinking very simple thoughts here. But I would say that that is what I've got, is little buffleheads. So that's cool. And then I'm just bringing in my marker just so I can make my sketch a little bit more affirmative, so to speak. Buffleheads actually look like they have like this extremely cool kind of coloration. It gets kind of iridescent, but I couldn't really see that from where I was. So I decided to keep my coloration just very simple, just black and grays here. From my distance, they really just looked black. And so I'm kind of just going to keep that idea, I think, just like a really simple. I'm using black and gray Tombow markers for this. Drawing anything from more of a 3/4 view is always more complicated because then you're dealing with some foreshortened elements like this beak. But it's a really good challenge, so I would say give it a try. Don't always draw everything just from the side or straight on. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm going for anything fancy at this stage. More just going for the idea of what did I see, and I can learn a little bit from that. So those are my little bufflehead silhouettes, and I think we're gonna just write that down. I'm just gonna write down Bufflehead. And you see, I didn't actually know anything about buffleheads, so I'm pleased to find that out. This scientific name reminds me of Alexander the Great's horse Bucephalus, which is one of the most famous war horses in all of history, and it means ox head in Greek. And I didn't know that part about the ox head, but I'm a horse person, so I knew the horse part. That old elb. I wonder if that means it refers to the white that's on them, like Elba. Moving on to our next couple here, I have slowed down the footage so it wasn't quite as shaky, and given a little sketch of them. And now we're going to color that in. Even though these birds aren't black and white, like the buffleheads, I was just gonna sketch them in like black, gray, and white, gonna kind of go like monochrome idea. But I did add color later on because I couldn't help myself. I brought out the colors. When you watch me spinning this Tombow marker, it's like a brush pen. I love to use the brush pen, but the reason I'm spinning it is a habit from using soft pastel pencils and also colored pencil, because by spinning it, you start working each side equally, so it's like you're sharpening your pencil as you're using it, which you absolutely do not need to do with the brush pen, but old habits die hard. I learned that this is an American widgeon pair, and I have to say that although I had been disappointed that I wasn't sketching on site at the estuary, I'm still learning about different types of birds, about their body shapes, about their names and their colors, and that really turned around my perspective. Like, I felt so much better about it. Mallard ducks are a really common bird in Canada, and I think they are cutie pies. I really like seeing them around. My sketching style often seems to turn little animals into a little bit like caricatures of themselves, and I'm embracing that. I think that if you've got a style, you just gotta go with it. Like, it starts to form automatically the more you do art, and Even if I wanted these, I mean, I could put the time into making these birds look hyper realistic, but instead they look like little characters, and I'm good with it. That's probably my favorite part about creating art for my mail club, is that I can create in different styles, so I can make my postcard print look like more realistic, and then I can make little characters for my stationery. I've decided to pull out some mildly colored markers for this project. I could not help myself. I had to bring in a little bit of color, but I wanted to sketch it in really loosely. Again, I wanted to have the air about it as if I was sketching on site. I didn't want to be particularly careful, so I'm often choosing the chisel end of the marker. It's a little bit clunky to work with, and I'm trying to kind of use sort of like quick strokes, just looking for value changes, and I'm attempting not to overthink it. Normally, I would want a lot of different shades of a particular color so that I could make transitions between the values and the shadow areas and the light areas. But again, I kind of limited myself to a certain number of markers in order to keep it deliberately rough. Then I just had to bring in the green of that mallard's head, because isn't that one of the most distinctive features about a mallard male, is their gorgeous green head? Whereas I believe the Canada goose is known more for its aggressive personality. We call them cobra chickens, but it's very distinctive in terms of the shape of its beak and its long neck, and so that's what I was concentrating on. That pretty white chin strap is also really important on a Canada goose. Every single one of them is sporting it. So if you're trying to do just basic shapes and basic colors or basic shading of a particular species, you really want to get those distinctive markings in there, because that's what's going to tell another human, hey, this is a Canada goose. I was keen to create kind of like a loose patterning of the wings, and I really liked how there was like white and sort of gray and brown, and I wasn't entirely sure how I was going to create it, so I just kind of wiggled the lighter marker in there, and then I'm going to come over with the darker brown. I was careful to put my marker strokes in like along with the pattern of the actual feathers, so I can make it a little more realistic, and I left some white because that's for like the highlights. The black area on the Canadian goose is the most distinctive, I think, because every Canada goose has this lovely long black neck, and then with their little white chin strap. So by fully coloring that in, then people can see from a distance, hey, that's a Canada goose. I like to get the eye well placed and kind of leave a highlight on any animal, because it just gives them a little bit more character. I added this light tone of gray to underneath the goose's chin and on the beak to just add a little bit of shadow and give it a little bit of form. Apparently the Canada goose had a little friend, so I needed to look up that little friend, and I really loved the colors of it. This is a Eurasian teal, and the Eurasian teal is quite a bit smaller than either the Canada goose or the mallards, and I wanted to show that in this composition. I wanted to show the different sizes in like different proportions compared to each other, and I really paid attention to how low this little teal is sitting in the water. So I was paying attention to like, where is the water on its side compared to where does its head start. I felt like that was distinctive. This little teal does have teal on his head, of course, but I was also kind of careful to keep my palette limited and use the exact same teal I'd used on the mallard, because if I use similar colors throughout this page, it's going to look more cohesive. And again, I chose the chisel end of my marker both for creating like that loose quality, but also because I think it's kind of good for feathers too. It just gets the right shape in there. There are birds outside here where I'm doing my voiceover, so I thought you could listen to them. Then I felt compelled to add some color to those widgeons from earlier. Just couldn't help myself, and so I did. I may have been discouraged when I first came back from the estuary, but after working in the studio, I felt really pleased about it, and I was happy to learn about the birds, and I was also happy with my sketches. Thank you so much for watching this video.